Hi everyone, this is Norris Tony coming back to y'all with another video. I just wanted to bring y'all some breaking news, and it's about R. Kelly, so I'm just gonna get right into the article. It's a pretty long one, so I'm gonna give my commentary afterwards. But I'm getting right into it. So this is from the CBS Chicago News. This is by CBS Chicago Team. This article that I'm about to read. And it says R. Kelly convicted of 6 counts in federal trial in Chicago. Co-defendants acquitted. Disgraced singer R. Kelly on Wednesday was convicted of multiple child pornography charges, accusing him of sexually abusing his 14-year-old goddaughter on video nearly 20 years ago, but jurors acquitted him of charges he conspired with 2 associates to cover up the tapes and to obstruct justice in his 2008 child pornography trial in Cook County. Kelly, 55, was found guilty of 3 child pornography counts and 3 counts of enticing minors for sex, but acquitted of 7 other charges, including obstruction of justice and conspiracy to receive child pornography. Each of the child pornography counts carries a sentence of up to 20 years, and the enticement charges each carry a sentence of up to 10 years. Co-defendants Darrell McDavid and Milton June Brown were acquitted of all charges. Jurors deliberated for about 11 hours over 2 days before delivering their verdict. Kelly was convicted of 3 of 4 counts accusing him of producing child pornography by filming himself having sex with his underage goddaughter, who testified against him under the PSEUDONYM, whatever that word is, Jane. Jurors saw parts of those 3 videos in court. Jurors acquitted him of a 4th child pornography charge involving a tape that Jane and prosecutors said showed Kelly having a threesome with Jane and his ex-girlfriend, Lisa Van Allen. But that tape was not shown in court. Prosecutors had argued that's because Kelly and his team successfully covered it up. Jurors acquitted Kelly and McDavid, his former business manager, of a conspiracy to obstruct justice charge that accused them of rigging his 2008 child pornography trial in Cook County by covering up incriminating sex tapes and intimidating and paying off Jane and her parents to keep his abuse of her secret. Kelly, McDavid, and Brown also were acquitted of a conspiracy to receive child pornography charge, accusing them of trying to retrieve and cover up 3 sex tapes involving Jane. Kelly and McDavid also were acquitted of 2 charges of receiving child pornography involving further claims they tried to retrieve and cover up other videos involving Jane. The government's case on those charges rests in large part on testimony from Charles Freeman and Lisa Van Allen, who defense attorneys described as liars out to extort Kelly for money. Finally, Kelly was convicted of 3 of 5 charges accusing him of enticing minors to engage in sexual activity, but acquitted of 2 other charges. Jurors convicted him of enticement charges involving Jane and 2 other accusers testifying under the Pseudonyms, Nia and Pauline, while acquitting him of enticement charges involving accusers Tracy and Brittany. Jane had accused Kelly of sexually abusing her hundreds of times after becoming her godfather when she was only 14 years old. Prosecutors showed the jury 3 videos that they said showed Kelly having sex with Jane, including one that showed him telling her to lay on the floor while he urinated on her. Sick bastard. Nia had testified she first met Kelly in '96 when she was only 15 years old, and that they had 2 sexual encounters, one at a hotel during his concert tour in Minnesota and another later that year at his music studio in Chicago. Pauline testified that Jane introduced her to Kelly when she was only 14 years old, and the 3 soon started having threesomes. Before Pauline started her own sexual relationship with Kelly alone when she was 15. She estimated she had sex with Kelly more than 80 times and had 60 threesomes with Kelly and Jane between the ages of 14 and 16. Tracy testified that she met Kelly in 1999 when she was an off-the-books intern for an Epic Records executive, and claimed that when she was only 16, Kelly forced himself on her at a downtown Chicago hotel. She said the 2 later developed a sexual relationship that continued beyond her 17th birthday. But defense attorneys cast doubts on her claims, pointing to a past lawsuit she filed against Kelly in which she claimed they met and started having sex in 2000 when she was 17 years old. Brittany did not testify at trial, and while both Jane and Pauline testified to having threesomes with Kelly and Brittany when they were just girls, defense attorneys seized on the fact Brittany didn't testify herself, asking jurors in closing arguments, "Where is Brittany?" Before the jury began its deliberations, Kelly's lead defense attorney asked jurors to set aside what they knew about the singer before the trial, acknowledging most of it probably wasn't favorable, and to treat him as a John Doe. Bonjean said the jury must make their decision based only on the evidence they heard in the courtroom, not what they might know about Kelly through the media or what they've heard about him elsewhere. Bonjean said no matter what jurors might decide, Kelly did some beautiful things when it came to making music, and he shouldn't be stripped of every bit of humanity he has. However, in the prosecution's rebuttal argument, Assistant U.S. Attorney Janice Apparentine said the evidence was clear that Kelly sexually abused girls and his co-defendants helped him cover it up. What R. Kelly wanted was to have sex with young girls, Apparentine said. Apparentine, I don't know how to say her name right, but I know it started with an A, said when the jury reflects on the case, they should consider who is at the center of it. Kelly's victims. She said they were children when Kelly began sexual relationships with them, and the jury should find him guilty. The defendants are guilty of each count in the indictment. Hold them accountable. Apparentine said jurors heard 4 weeks of testimony from more than 30 witnesses and saw clips from 3 sex tapes and that prosecutors said show Kelly sexually abusing his 14-year-old goddaughter. During the trial, 4 women accused Kelly of sexually abusing them when they were girls, including the state's star witness, who testified under the PSEUDONYM, Jane, and told jurors that Kelly began abusing her after becoming her godfather when she was only 14 and had sex with her hundreds of times between the ages of 14 and 18. Jane had denied for years that Kelly abused her, but now says Kelly intimidated her and her family and paid them off to keep his abuse secret. She now says she was the person in the video at the center of Kelly's 2008 child pornography trial in Cook County and has told the jury Kelly recorded her on other videos shown in court. McDavid was the only defendant to testify at the trial, spending 3 days on the witness stand repeatedly telling jurors that he believed Kelly when he denied sexually abusing girls in the early 2000s, but said he began to have doubts about Kelly's innocence after learning new things during the ongoing federal trial. Kelly already has been sentenced to 30 years in prison after he was convicted last year of racketeering and sex trafficking charges in federal court in New York. Kelly also is still awaiting trial in Cook County in sexual assault and sexual abuse cases involving 4 women, 3 of whom were girls at the time of the abuse. He also faces charges of soliciting a minor for prostitution in Minnesota. Damn. That's that article, but it's more to this article. It's like read more about the response to Wednesday's verdict below. Okay, I guess I can do that. So y'all can know everything that's going on. Dang, this video gonna be a little long, but I'm gonna try to get through this as quick as possible. U.S. Attorney's Office to recommend consecutive sentence. The U.S. Attorney's Office said they will recommend a consecutive sentence to the 30-year sentence R. Kelly received in New York, adding prison time for Kelly. There was no word late Wednesday on when the sentencing will take place. That's by Tara Molina. And here goes something else. Attorney David Fish, R. Kelly likely won't see light of day out of prison again. Attorney David Fish represented R. Kelly accuser Johanna Pace, who appeared in the Surviving R. Kelly documentary. Fish was also subpoenaed in Kelly's 2001 trial in Brooklyn. Fish joined CBS 2's Joe Donlan and Erica Sargent on our CBS News Chicago stream Wednesday night to discuss the verdict Wednesday and the allegations against Kelly that go back decades. I'm glad that R. Kelly will most likely be spending the rest of his life or nearly the rest of his life in prison, Fish said. You know it's a very sad day, though in Chicago, in that we know that we allowed this to go on for 20 years. So many victims and so many young girls that were impacted by him. Fish also called it disappointing that what he deemed Kelly's enablers were not convicted, but said prosecutors had a tough case against them. Fish said Kelly was able to escape accountability for his acts in large part due to non-disclosure agreements, which he said were likewise used by other high-profile men who have been convicted of sex crimes, such as Harvey Weinstein, Bill Cosby, and Jeffrey Epstein. They have victim after victim after victim, and then they pay them some money and make them sign agreements that they're not going to tell anyone, Fish said. What that allows allows for more women to be victimized because people don't know about what's going on. Fish said his client Pace had a relationship with Kelly when she was 16 that quickly turned into physical, sexual, and emotional abuse. As she grew up, she realized this was wrong, and the same thing that happened to her happened to a lot of other girls that were approximately the same age, Fish said. Fish said he thinks it unlikely that Kelly will ever see the light of day outside a prison again. Still, there are some more cases against him, including one in court in Cook County Criminal Court and one in Minnesota. Fish said the trials can be an important part of the healing process for victims. This part was written by Adam Harrington. Okay, now they have the breakdown of the verdict. Here's a breakdown of the verdict. R. Kelly, count 1, production of child pornography video involving Jane, 10 to 20 years, guilty. Count 2, production of child pornography video involving Jane, 10 to 20 years, guilty. Count 3, production of child pornography video involving Jane, 10 to 20 years, guilty. Count 4, dang, it's the same count. Production of child abuse or child pornography video involving Jane, 10 to 20 years, not guilty. Oh, that's a not guilty verdict. Count 5, conspiracy to obstruct justice, conspiring to cover up incriminating tapes ahead of 2008 trial, up to 5 years, not guilty. Count 6, conspiracy to receive child pornography, 3 videos involving Jane, 5 to 20 years, not guilty. Count 7, receiving child pornography, 2 videos involving Jane, 5 to 20 years, not guilty. Count 8, receiving child pornography, 1 video involving Jane, 5 to 20 years, not guilty. Count 9, coercing minor Jane to engage in sexual activity, up to 10 years, guilty. Count 10, coercing minor Nia to engage in sexual activity, up to 10 years, guilty. Count 11, coercing minor Tracy to engage in sexual activity, up to 10 years, not guilty. Count 12, coercing minor Pauline to engage in sexual activity, up to 10 years, guilty. Count 13, coercing minor Brittany to engage in sexual activity, up to 10 years, not guilty. Daryl McDavid, not guilty. Count 5, conspiracy to obstruct justice, conspiring to cover up incriminating tapes ahead of 2008 trial, up to 5 years. Count 6, conspiring to receive child pornography, 3 videos involving Jane, 5 to 20 years. Count 7, receiving child pornography, 2 videos involving Jane, 5 to 20 years. Count 8, receiving child pornography, 1 video involving Jane, 5 to 20 years. This is what Darrell McDavid is not guilty of. Now, Milton Jones Brown, not guilty. Count 6, conspiring to receive child pornography, 3 videos involving Jane, 5 to 20 years. This portion of the article is by John Dodge. Okay, it shouldn't be that much more to this. Oh, like 3 more stories. Ooh, 4 more parts. Jeez, this is long. I should have did a live. But yeah, I'm going to try to get through this as fast as I can so y'all can know everything that's going on. So, the next part. Trial attorney Tamara Walker says Kelly's defense team should consider plea deal in pending Cook County cases. Trial attorney Tamara Walker, who has been closing following the case, said the jury saw very clearly that the government presented a compelling case on the 6 counts which concerned the cohering minors to sex with the 3 minors, as well as the taping and filming of those acts. However, Walker said the jury also determined the prosecution didn't make its case that Kelly and his co-defendants conspired to fix his 2008 child pornography trial at which he was acquitted. With Kelly now facing his second conviction on federal charges in the past 2 years, Walker said the singer's defense team should evaluate whether or not to make plea deals on other sex crime cases in Cook County in Minnesota. At what point do you start to look at prosecutors and start to make a deal? You already have a 30-year sentence, and the fact that he already has a conviction can definitely be used in sentencing on this case. So you have to start to evaluate those cases and determine whether or not it's worth it to continue with pleas of not guilty or look to a plea deal where perhaps time can be reduced or you're not piling on if there's conviction in these other cases, she said. Nonetheless, Walker said she expects Kelly's defense attorneys will file the necessary post-trial motions to challenge the verdict and preserve his rights to appeal his latest conviction. Kelly already has filed notice that he will be appealing his racketeering and sex trafficking conviction from his federal case in New York, for which he was sentenced to 30 years in prison. Good luck with that. Okay, and that part was done by Todd, and his last name started with an F. But here go another part of this long article. U.S. Attorney calls R. Kelly conduct reprehensible. U.S. Attorney John, I don't know how to say his last name, it starts with an L, praised the jury's verdict, saying that R. Kelly is finally being held accountable for his reprehensible conduct. Mr. Kelly engaged in sex acts with multiple girls under the age of 18, and he recorded some of those sex acts on video, the attorney said. We are pleased with the fact that Robert Kelly is being held accountable for that reprehensible conduct. We are particularly pleased that Robert Kelly is finally being held accountable for the abuse of his 14-year-old daughter. Goddaughter. That was the victim identified as Jane in this trial at the center of the 2008 case in which Kelly was acquitted. Jane took the stand in this case but did not testify in the first trial. At sentencing, Kelly is facing anywhere from 10 to 90 years of imprisonment for all the counts. The sentence could be considered separate from the case in New York in which Kelly was convicted and sentenced to 30 years. Prosecutors will argue for that, but it will be at the judge's discretion, the U.S. attorney said. L thanked the victims in this case, the people who survived Robert Kelly in his years of abuse. Their courage to come into this courtroom and to stand before the jury and to reveal the unspeakable things that man did to them is remarkable. As for the not guilty verdicts, especially for Kelly's 2 co-defendants who were acquitted, L said the charges were justified, but that he respected the jury's verdict. Okay, R. Kelly's reaction as the verdict was read. CBS 2 investigator Megan Heckey was in the courtroom when U.S. District Judge Harry, I don't know how to say his last name, it starts with an L, but announced the jury had reached a verdict. McDavid and Brown were already sitting down when Kelly walked in and gave McDavid a firm handshake. They sat down, and after that, it was so tense that one could hear a pin drop in the room. At 4:15 p.m., the jury entered, and the forewoman handed the verdict to a U.S. Marshal, who handed it to the judge. The judge then read the verdict. It was hard to tell what was going on in Kelly's mind, for as the judge read the first couple of counts, as he was wearing a mask and had on thick glasses. But one but once the not guilty verdicts came in, he was nodding his head as Bonjean tapped him on the back and rubbed him on the shoulders. After the verdict against McDavid was issued, McDavid stood up, yelled, threw his arms in the air, and grabbed the attorney that was next to him. This, of course, is not the appropriate way to act in a federal courtroom, so they all quickly sat down after getting a little bit of a look from the judge. After Brown was also acquitted, he gave an audible "yeah" as Kelly nodded his head in approval. After the judge thanked the jurors for their service and went through a couple of administrative things, Kelly hugged McDavid and Brown as they were leaving the courtroom. That portion of the article was done by Megan Heckey. Okay. Jim, his last name started with a D, but I don't really know how to say it. This is another guy that's talking about R. Kelly, responding to the verdict. This man is a monster. I agree. But former Chicago Sun-Times rock critic Jim D was the reporter who first brought attention to sexual misconduct claims against Kelly back in December 2000. D was substantially sent two sex tapes purporting to show Kelly, which were handed over to authorities. Speaking to CBS 2's Jim Williams and Maria S., because I don't know how to say her last name, Wednesday afternoon, D took Kelly's attorney, Jennifer Bonjean, to task for claiming the criminal cases against Kelly came about as a result of the documentary Surviving R. Kelly. She neglected to mention 22 years of diligent investigative reporting by the Chicago Sun-Times, D said. D noted that the jury saw 17 clips from 3 videos of a young woman who said Kelly was abusing her starting at the age of 14 and went on doing so hundreds of times in subsequent years when she was still underage. What is her life like today? I have never spoken to her, D said, but I've spoken to 68 women whose lives were ruined by this monster. D also noted that Bonjean had asked everyone to consider that Kelly is a human being. Yes, he was a musical genius. Yes, he had a tough upbringing and he was abused. But no one in the history of popular music has ever been convicted of charges this wide, this broad. Going back to 1991, D said, "The man's a monster, and it breaks my heart to say that." Kelly went on trial for child pornography charges in Cook County Criminal Court in 2008 over the tape authorities said showed Kelly and the then 14-year-old girl. Kelly was acquitted in that case, given that Williams asked D if he thought criminal convictions would ever come for R. Kelly, as they now have in federal court in Brooklyn and Chicago. My faith in the justice system for the travesty of justice that happened in Judge Vincent Gorhan's courtroom, it couldn't be lower, D said, and I think the feds presented a very sloppy case here because there was conflicting testimony. There were D witnesses. Did they not read the Chicago Sun-Times 22-year archive? I can't believe it. You know that's not a docu-series. That's reporting that stands, not a single correction, clarification, retraction, much less a suit, in 22 years of the most horrible documenting of just heartbreaking crimes. D has made the point reportedly over the past 22 years about what R. Kelly's crimes say about the treatment of black women. And I hear from them, and you know their reaction is always, I'm glad justice was finally served. I don't get that time back from when I was 14, 15, 16. It's too little, too late, he said. Oh my good. Okay, I'm almost done, y'all. I'm close. Okay. R. Kelly attorney uses mixed verdict to criticize prosecutors. While R. Kelly was convicted of 6 crimes in his child pornography trial, his attorney used a mixed verdict to blast government attorneys for putting on a case that was overcharged. They charged counts that they couldn't win, said attorney Jennifer Bonjean. Kelly was found guilty of 3 pornography counts and 3 counts of enticing minors for sex, but acquitted of 7 other charges, including obstruction of justice and conspiracy to receive child pornography. She praised the jury for their careful deliberations. They did their job and looked at each other separately, said Bonjean. Obviously, we are not celebrating a win, but happy the jury looked at each other, or at each count. Not at each other, at each count. I'm sorry about that. Bonjean said Kelly was used to bad news, referencing his 30-year sentence is a separate sex trafficking case in New York. He did say that he had a sense of relief that this case was in the past, Bonjean said. She told reporters that her team was considering an appeal, but would not get into details about that strategy. He still got many fights to fight, she said. Okay, this is the last part of the article. And this is about the court verdict. Attorney for Darrell McDavid accuses prosecution witnesses of lying. Following the verdict, Bo Brindley, attorney for Darrell McDavid, said his client has been vindicated. 12 people acknowledged that which was always true. The work done by Daryl McDavid and R. Kelly's lawyers, Edward Jensen and Jerry Margulis, was great work. They did a great job. They did the right thing, and this jury has exonerated Daryl McDavid and his exonerated and has exonerated those men right along with him, Brindley said. Jensen and Morales have both died. Bradley is empathized that they and McDavid had a responsibility to defend R. Kelly when allegations of a sex tape involving a minor surfaced in 2002, and in Kelly's subsequent criminal trial focusing on the tape in 2008. Brindley also accused 2 prosecution witnesses, Lisa Van Allen and Charles Freeman, of lying on the stand. Freeman claimed Kelly's team agreed to pay him to recover a sex tape, while Van Allen tested $150,000 to return a tape, showing the 2 of them having sex with his underage goddaughter. We are grateful for those jurors to be able to see that when a lie is told on the witness stand, it will not be accepted, B said. McDavid himself thanked his attorneys for standing tireless beside him for years. He noted that his own son got out of law school and worked on the case until 3:30 a.m. every morning to exonerate his father. Whoa, that is the end of that article. Oh, it was a lot of stuff in that article. A lot of different perspectives. A lot of people reacting to that article. Oh, I'm gonna hurry up and give my quick commentary right quick. It's good that Kelly has been found guilty, like I thought he was. Because if he was innocent, he wouldn't be in jail. He wouldn't be in prison, and all those girls and women wouldn't have, young women and girls wouldn't have came forward to testify against him and to say that he hurt them and harmed them. But yeah, I do agree that R. Kelly is a monster. He is, got mental issues. He is sick mentally, but that does not excuse his actions or his behavior. So, and then he got another court case going to happen in Minnesota, another state. Ooh, New York, Chicago, now Minnesota. Wow, that man got around. But yeah, I just want to say that two of them co-defendants got off, that they was acquitted. They got lucky because them and other people that was R. Kelly's handlers helping him get these young girls, and having him do whatever he did, the abuse that he did to them, they should be in jail too. They should be behind bars with R. Kelly because they shouldn't get away with that. And then talk about the parents. Y'all sit up there and let y'all young girls go with R. Kelly or get involved with R. Kelly. You don't never let your daughter hang out with no grown man at no concert, on stage, or backstage. And you definitely don't let your daughter leave with R. Kelly to go anywhere outside that concert. Wherever your daughter met R. Kelly at. But yeah, you need to pay. This case just shows that parents need to pay more attention to their children, especially their daughters, because there's more men out there like R. Kelly that if they see these young girls alone and by themselves, they'll do everything they can to manipulate these girls and take these girls and do whatever. God knows what to them. But yeah, parents, you need to pay more attention to your kids, where they going, what they doing, who they hanging around. And yeah, these parents is just as guilty as those handlers. It's like you gave those your girls to R. Kelly. It's like you just let them go off and didn't pay no attention to where their whereabouts or what they was doing. That's poor parenting in my book. So they don't get a free pass either. But for now, I'm just gonna say, R. Kelly, you better prepare yourself. You better make it seem like you're ready to give up that honey love when you go to jail or prison. You better be ready to give up that honey love because I'm telling you, them men gonna be after you. And it ain't no closet that you can run to and hide. There's nowhere to run, there's nowhere to hide. Definitely not for you. So you might as well get ready to bend it over and spread it wide for those men to hit it from the back. Because, woo, you getting your karma. You getting what's coming to you. But that's all I'm gonna say. This is a long video. I'm sorry, you all. If I could have went live, I would have. If I would have known this article would have been that long, I would have went live. I've never did a pre-recorded video this long before, so I hope you don't get bored watching it. But I want to say thank you to you. Thank you for anyone who watches this. You can comment, subscribe, share the video. Please like the video. Give me likes. Like, comment, subscribe, share the video. Thanks for watching. Tell me what you think, how I did in the comments below. And peace. Have a good night. Peace.